Hey everybody, it's your guy Lucas here. Now, if you're like me, you probably like superhero movies. You probably wouldn't be watching this video if you weren't. I, like a good majority of people out there, firmly enjoy the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies. And how could you not? One movie after another, all connected to each other, leading up to quite possibly the greatest finale in cinematic history. Well, that's all great and everything if you're a fan of the other comic book company, aka DC. You're probably wishing that something similar would have happened with them. And I know DC right now is making a bunch of films in its own shared universe. Even though a lot of the movies have been good lately, like Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Shazam, and even Birds of Prey have all gotten critical acclaim, a good number of them have been a little less than critically well received. Heck, Warner Brothers' plans seem to be all over the place, with a Flashpoint movie coming out with Michael Keaton's Batman, the Snyder Cut of Justice League coming out next year. Heck, they're even making another Batman movie that's not connected to anything, starring Robert Pattinson, which I'm very excited for, by the way. With all that, it's pretty clear that Warner Brothers have dropped their plans for a shared universe. And I know, they're focusing on a multiverse. Heck, the Arrowverse even adapted a Crisis on Infinite Earths this past year. Heck, Chucky even had a scene in it. But what I want to discuss in this video is, what if Batman Begins started the DC Cinematic Universe? Now, when coming up with this hypothetical scenario, we'll be making some movies up. We'll be using the TV shows, the cartoons, the comics for inspiration. And the movies that have already been made, we'll tweak them to fit into the mold of our shared universe. So, let's begin with our first movie in the DC Cinematic Universe. Batman Begins. So, I was thinking in the overall scheme of things, there isn't really a whole lot that can be changed. If we were gonna tweak it though, maybe try to put Talia al Ghul in there somewhere. Also, perhaps the Lazarus Pits could be mentioned, as things are very much connected to Ra's al Ghul, and while I get that the Nolan films were going for a grounded approach, that's not what we're going for here. While training with Ra's or Raz, Bruce starts a friendship with Talia that eventually starts to blossom into a romance, but he's conflicted because he still has feelings for his childhood love, Rachel. Let's just go ahead and have Maggie Gyllenhaal play her the first time, so that way we don't have to worry about recasting. Also, instead of Ra's going by Descartes, he will introduce himself as Ra's al Ghul the first time. He'll still keep his true nature secret. Once Bruce's training is over, Ra's will tell him about his true plans and will try to convince Bruce to strike him down and take his rightful place as his successor, as the Demon Head. Bruce will fight him, but while the rest of the League of Shadows tries to fight him, Talia orders them to stay back. This is Ra's battle, not theirs. The building starts to get destroyed the same way it does in the movie. But instead of getting to save Ra's, Bruce tries to save him, but Ra's allows himself to seemingly die, giving Bruce even more guilt. Talia and the rest of the League of Shadows are nowhere to be found. Bruce goes off to Gotham and starts his campaign as the Batman. Also, we're gonna change the Scarecrow a little bit. Don't get me wrong, I love what they did with Scarecrow in Batman Begins, but I feel that in our version, we should take some inspiration from the Arkham games. During that one scene where he fights Crane for the first time, he's given some weird hallucination where he's confronted with his parents. He's told that maybe if he tried harder, his parents would still be alive. It would be something akin to that awesome scene in Spider-Man Far From Home. You know exactly what I'm talking about. In the last act, during the party, Talia is there. Bruce is in shock, asking why she's there. She tells him, "We have some unfinished business with you, my beloved." "We?" asks Bruce. Rachel Gould, who is very much alive, is there. Bruce has a terrible feeling. "How are you?" "Well, Bruce, like I told you earlier, Rachel Gould is immortal." "Beloved, my father only wants to talk." Bruce then gets everyone to leave by acting like a drunk idiot. It goes down the same way as in the movie. Talia is distraught. She didn't think her father would go to this level. At least, not now. After the train fight, Bruce still does the whole, "I won't kill you, but I don't have to save you" bit. Talia tries to look for her father, but there is no body. She vows revenge and leaves with the rest of the League. The movie ends the same way, with Bruce meeting with James on a rooftop and being introduced to the bat signal. James says, "You know, my daughter is obsessed with you." He then gives him the same Joker card and the movie ends. This time, however, we'll have a post-credit scene. It will be with Bruce watching the news in his den. Alfred comes in, offering Bruce some tea, but Bruce is very much focused on the TV. The caption on the TV says, "Flying Man in Metropolis, friend or foe?" Alfred says, "Well, it looks like the world is getting stranger every day, Mr. Wayne." Bruce has a great look of concern on his face. And then we end. And that's it for Batman Begins. The next movie on our list, Superman Begins. Well, I would have kept Superman Returns, which I don't think is the worst Superman movie out there. It's not particularly great either. And plus, it's much more of a sequel to the first two Superman movies. And we're wanting to start off fresh. Now, that's not to say we'll get rid of every single element of that movie. We're going to keep Brandon Routh, who was born to play Superman. And I think the Arrowverse's Crisis was a way better showcase of that. Also, instead of Bryan Singer, let's go with J.J. Abrams for obvious reasons. Also, let's recast Lex Luthor for the same reasons we'll get rid of Singer. Our Lex Luthor needs to be charismatic, smooth, but also believably threatening. Also, for our version of Lex, we're going more with a sympathetic kind of tone. Now, before Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice made their decision, there were rumors of Denzel Washington being cast as Lex Luthor. And I love that choice. I know what a lot of people are thinking, but Lucas, Luthor is white. Well, to say that, I say, shut up, racist. Have you ever seen the Lex in the DC animated TV shows? Come on. So for this chapter, I'm going to take some inspiration from all over the place. The comics, the cartoons, Man of Steel, Smallville, and yes, even Superman Returns. I actually like the idea of the movie starting out on Krypton, basically the same way it does in Man of Steel, but heavily trimmed down. Jor-El is trying to convince people that Krypton's core is unstable and that the planet is about to explode. Nobody believes him. In fact, the only people that believed him were the residents of the city of Kandor, which has mysteriously disappeared. Besides Kandor, the Only other two people that believed Jor-El were the infamous General Zod and his wife, Fiora, who have since then been trapped in the Phantom Zone for treason. Jor-El is like, screw this, and decides that if he can't save Krypton, he can at least save its legacy. So him and his wife send their child, Kal-El, to the planet Earth. Years later, the child has been on Earth, now going by the name Clark Kent. He is now living in the city of Metropolis, which is not too far away from the city of Gotham. He still visits his Earth parents quite frequently, John and Martha Kent, in his hometown of Smallville, Kansas. His mother even given him a pretty nice costume that she used a lot of money to sew up for him. Clark currently is working as a reporter for the Daily Planet and is learning under the tutelage of Lois Lane, this time played by Brandon Routh's real-life wife, Courtney Ford. At this point, there have only been rumblings of seeing a flying man, but many people have dismissed these as rumors. While Clark isn't working, he's been at his Fortress of Solitude, a place in the Arctic that was made in order for Clark to just rewind and relax. He's also been doing some training, trying to perfect his powers before he goes off trying to play hero, so that way he won't cause an accident, similar to the destruction in Metropolis and Man of Steel. Like his Pa Kent always told him, he was put here for a reason, and one of these days, he'll find out what that reason is. Clark's been reading and looking up what the planet of Krypton was like. He starts to get weary though, because none of this is a replacement for the real thing. Something that he'll never get to experience for himself. Lois and Clark have been tasked with interviewing Lex Luthor, aka the smartest man on the planet and CEO of LexCorp. During their interview, Lex grows pretty fond of Clark, finding his goofy tendencies amusing, and the two start to see each other as friends. Clark eventually gets an exclusive interview with Lex, something which makes Lois insanely jealous. Lex starts to talk to Clark about LexCorp's newest project, a particle accelerator, something that their rivals at Star Labs have been attempting to do but have failed. He shows Clark the area, and Clark starts to see that it's lacking very good safety conditions. Lex tells him to relax. There isn't anything to worry about. Clark talks to Lois about what he saw, and Lois becomes concerned. Smallville, there's a story here. Lex is clearly up to something. I'm sure Lex knows what he's doing. If you're not going to investigate this, then I will. Before Clark says anything, there's news of a plane that is about to crash. Clark runs off. Lois just looks at him. As Clark runs, he unbuttons his shirt, revealing the classic S-shield. We get a scene where Clark stops the crash, very similar to how he does it in Superman Returns. When he lands the plane, reporters gather around, the first being Lois. Clark is a little flabbergasted with all the attention he's getting and flies off. The media starts naming him Superman. Clark visits his parents, who both tell him about how proud they are of him. The next day, Clark walks with Lois to the presentation of the particle accelerator at LexCorp. Lois talks to Clark about Superman, with Clark surprised with how interested she seems to be in him. During the event, Lois sneaks off, checking out the actual particle accelerator, taking notes, noticing how dangerous it looks. Turns out that Lex has been cutting cost, just so he could get this done sooner. Lex claims this to be his crowning achievement, with some telling him that his father would be proud, which Lex shrugs that off. As predicted, things start off very bad, with Clark telling Lex that maybe this isn't a good idea. Lex tells Clark that he's wrong and just to trust him. Clark then sneaks off into his Superman suit. The accelerator starts to explode, but Superman saves everyone. Superman saves Lois before she gets crushed by debris. Lois kisses Superman, not knowing that he's actually Clark Kent, who blushes. Lex is distraught. The public starts to crucify him a bit, to which he blames Superman for everything that went wrong. During the particle accelerator, a hole in the space-time continuum tore open. Two beings are spat out. General Zod and Feora. They are weakened. Tired. Perhaps they had been in the Phantom Zone for so long that they had to readjust to being out of it. They do notice that they are on a planet with a yellow sun, giving them godlike powers. They could enslave this planet with ease. Perhaps they can make a new Krypton. The two are curious about how they have finally escaped their imprisonment. They investigate and realize that the thing that helped them escape was the LexCorp particle accelerator. After seeing footage of Superman on a TV, they notice the logo on his chest, knowing that it's the symbol of the House of El. He looks very much like Jor-El, says Feora. And this is without any doubt the son of Jor-El, says Zod. The two go to Lex, intimidating him, telling him that he is going to redo his little experiment so that the portal of the Phantom Zone can reopen, and that more of Zod's former crew and more Kryptonians can be released. Lex agrees, but the two of them must eliminate Superman. They agree to this, and as the two fly off, Lex notices some debris that flew off of them, which had a glowing green hue to it. He noticed that when it fell off of Zod and Feora, they started to move a lot easier once the green dust fell off of them. Perhaps the green dust was weakening them, and maybe he can do something with this stuff. Meanwhile, at the Daily Planet, Lois is starting to write a piece on Superman. Is he a friend or foe? Clark notices this. Oh, it's that super fella. Spying Smallville? Oh, no, I would never. I'm just teasing, Kent. Relax. She wants to do a story about Superman. Ask him questions about where he's from. Why is he here? What exactly does he want? Oh, I'm sure that if you ask him, Miss Lane, he'll be more than willing to comply. Here's hoping. The two smile at each other. Suddenly, the lights start to flicker. It's happening throughout the city of Metropolis. A being through scattered pixels on every television and computer screen throughout the city gives a message. Son of El, we know you're out there. Zod and Feora are flying above the city. Superman meets them there. They try to convince Superman that they should rule the people of this world. Superman tries to convince them to not do that, but they aren't going to change their minds. Clark remembers hearing about Zod from some old messages that his father left him. Zod tells Clark about how his father had him imprisoned in the Phantom Zone for trying to kill the Kryptonian Council because they refused to relocate their people to an already inhabited planet. They can now have a chance to make a new Krypton by having Lex release more Kryptonians from the Phantom Zone. Clark is shocked. Clark refuses, and the two attack him. As Superman fights the two, he tries to evacuate as many people as possible. There's destruction, but not nearly to the amount in Man of Steel. Superman remembers that there is a Phantom Zone projector in his Fortress of Solitude, but he can't flee with Zod and Feora on the loose. Suddenly, from out of nowhere, a green laser hits Feora, but not killing her. Superman sees Lex with a blaster. The two stare each other down as Zod tackles Superman to the ground. Kal-El, don't tell me that you haven't even thought about subjugating these ants. You could finally experience Krypton, an even better Krypton, and we can do it together. I'm not interested in your idea of being a Kryptonian. The two battle even more, and as a falling billboard is making its way to the ground, Superman stops it from crushing people. Zod keeps using his heat vision on Superman, and as Zod is about to make a killing blow, the same green laser hits him, incapacitating him. Lex declares himself the man who saved Superman, and the city proclaimed them both as heroes. Cut to Superman returning from the Fortress of Solitude with his Phantom Zone projector. Zod and Fiora are put back where they belong. Lex's reputation has improved since the particle accelerator, and news anchors are also starting to question whether or not they should trust the so-called Superman. We see Lois on her balcony with Superman. She asks him about who he is and what he wants. My real name is Kal-El. I come from the planet Krypton, which has been destroyed. I'm not exactly sure what being a Kryptonian actually means. But I do know that being here on Earth means that I have a responsibility to protect this planet and all of its people. Lois's story gets published, and Clark tells her how good it is. We also get a glimpse of Lex working on synthesizing some of the green dust into a more rock-like shape, and also he begins to work on a robotic suit. The movie ends with the classic Superman flying past Earth and space, winking at the camera scene. Our post-credit scene is of Lex in a business meeting with one of his rivals, Bruce Wayne. He asks about the green laser that he used during the attack on Metropolis. Why are you so interested, Mr. Wayne? I'm just interested in why you have a weapon made specifically to harm someone like Superman. You'll never know when we might need it. We'll see. Bruce walks off. Lex gets a call. The person on the other line is a Miss Kale, telling Lex that her grandmother, Veronica, would know all too well about his little Superman problem. We then cut to Miss Kale looking at a clipping from a newspaper, which has a picture of Wonder Woman on it, dated back to the 1940s. And that's where we're going to leave off today. So, tell me how you guys feel about everything. Is there anything you would critique? Do you have any ideas for any future movies? Feel free to let me know. And as always, like and subscribe. Thank you.